Let's see how we can build a headless CMS and a decoupled CMS using some amazing tools that are available to us right now, like AWS Amplify Gen 2, web components, etc. So let's first look at what these terms really mean. What is headless CMS and a decoupled CMS, why they are useful. Then we'll go into the code. We'll look at how easy it is to use tools like AWS Gen 2 to create a headless CMS. And finally, I'll also talk about the choices, why we chose these tools, and what are the pros and cons. So first, let's take a look at what headless CMS really means. In this app, this is a simple Next.js app, but think of this to be a very big enterprise app. Really, any changes or content changes or whatever could go through creating a ticket and going through the typical software development lifecycle, which could mean merging code reviews, going through the pipeline and deploy to prod. What certain content we can choose to have our marketing team or our product owner, we can have them just manage it separately without having to redeploy or without having to create tickets for the development team. So that is the promise of the headless CMS. So in this case, this content, they can sit separately in a site like this, where we can, let's actually go ahead and modify this. So we are going to maybe add one more item over here. Imagine this to be an admin site for marketers where they can just go and manage the content. So here they have, let's say they have added one more item here, and we go back to our site and we can see that now we can see 3 items, right? And similarly, they can archive one of them and they will reflect on the main site. So all of this can happen in real time. These tools, headless CMS tools, will probably also have like some approval and publish process, but at a very basic level, this is what it really means, that these are managed separately from the site, and as they are changed by the marketing team or your product owner, whoever manages content, they reflect on a site. It's kind of become almost, you can almost assume that this is available and being used in most e-commerce sites, but there are a lot of other apps where you could really benefit from having a flow like this. So that was just the content, just the text content, but what if we want to also let them manage the look and feel? So in this case, this is a web component, and this is also a web component, although for this demo this is just plain text, but you can imagine how we can also change the display as well. So this is actually a web component that is embedded within the main Next.js site, and in that web component we can actually change the look and feel as well, apart from the content. So content is managed at this place called, at this URL, app.rulescms.com, and then that is actually consumed by our HTML, which is also separate from the app, which defines the look and feel, which we create as a web component deployed separately at this wc.rulescms.com, and then that is what is included in this actual Next.js site. So let's look into the code a little bit and first understand one by one how they are built. First part is just let's look at web component itself, and towards at the end we'll also discuss about this choice of why to use a web component instead of some other choices, for example creating some libraries within the same technology, in this case a React Next.js app. But let's first just take a simple look at what this web component looks like, right? So this is that web component code where it ends up being defined as a new HTML tag. We use it, we define it with custom elements, which is by default supported in all modern browsers now. So once this is defined, you can include it in any HTML, and if this JS file where it is defined is included in there, then it will work. And behind the scenes, this tag has its own shadow DOM where the styles are defined, and then the HTML tags are defined that will be displayed when this rule CMS greeting is used. So this is just to go over the flow for this web component. This connected callback is called when it is initialized, and when we initialize, we call the render method, and that creates this HTML on the fly, and then it becomes a part of the DOM. So when we include it in the Next.js site, so let's take a look at the Next.js site itself. All we have to do is to go in there and include it as a script file once we deploy it to a CDN. So that file that I just showed is deployed to a CDN now, and it's just included like any other JavaScript script file. Once it is included, we just run it here as an HTML tag. We included these are the two HTML tags, and then it is recognized, this functionality is embedded in that JS file, but it is recognized as a tag just like any other tags, h2 or dev or any of these. So that is the beauty of it. The functionality is abstracted away. The look and feel can be defined within that, and it will all be independent of what we are using for our actual app here. And we'll talk about that, like I said, towards the end. But yeah, that's about the web component part where look and feel is abstracted. And now let's take a look at how the content is abstracted as well. So we saw that this content actually is coming all the way from our app.rulecms.com, which is our headless CMS and AWS Gen. Let's take a look at the code for that as well. So this is all the code that I needed to write to define the backend, the CRUD for that content that is displayed over here. So this content has a field which is of type string, and then we make it active, inactive, or archived, which we saw before. We can archive the content as well. And then for author, we let the logged in user, the person who is logged into the site, be able to create, read, and update it. But it can be read by everybody. That's the whole point of it. So any site can read it. AWS Amplify will also give an API key that needs to be used to call it, and to call it to get that read-only data. But yeah, it's pretty much available to anybody who has that key, and that would be used by the Next.js app. So let's take a look at this one as well. So this is the content. This is defining the backend CRUD. We'll talk about why this is a great way instead of writing all the code for the CRUD towards the end. And we can take a look at some of the front-end code that I had to write as well. In this case, I chose React, but Gen 2 lets you choose between all the popular modern frameworks and different languages. So here, the front-end code looks something like this for this Headless CMS app, where this is how I can just use the Amplify provided client library to get the list. And here I'm updating it as well. What's really amazing about Gen 2 now is that the schema that I defined in my resource file, I'm using the schema that I defined here. I'm using the same schema for the definition, for the TypeScript definitions within by my React file as well. So it's shareable between the front end and back end. So everything is strongly typed, and we display that list over. We have different subcomponents for creating the content. This is how we create it. There's one to archive it, things like that. So it's all simple React code and simple hooks. I have put the styles in line, but Amplify does give you the ability to define proper themes and everything. So you can really build an app which is enterprise ready. So that's just the code for the Headless CMS tool itself. We are gonna see how this is actually consumed. I talked about how this data is available as read-only over here. So we can take a look at how we can consume that read-only data. So we can take a look at this other web component here, which is our content list. And here I have tried to make this as small as possible, so I haven't used any library at all. The heavier the library, the more would be the load time. So This simply uses the fetch API, the JavaScript fetch API. We make a call to the API. It's GraphQL because that's what AWS Amplify uses. I make a post call with the API key here. I'm gonna change this key after this recording, but here is that all that data. There is some error handling. We pull that list of data and then we display it. We have some loading and all that, different scenarios, but the crux is really we get the data and then we create an HTML string here with that list of data, and we map each item to an order list. And that is the point, abstracting it away here, that we could later on change this to unordered list or something totally different, a list of cards. All of that is abstracted away within this web component, which is deployed separately. Yeah, this guy just pulls all the data and then displays it, embeds that into the DOM, and our Next.js site just includes it over here, and we can dictate where it is being displayed, but then what is being displayed, how it is being displayed is all controlled from outside. My app doesn't have to worry about it. So we include what are the steps I needed to do to make it work for this Next.js site. I had to include the JS file. I also created a style sheet file with some CSS variables that's included, but essentially just including the JS file for these two web components and then just using it wherever I need to. There was one more thing that I had to do for the Next.js site because it does type checking during compilation and it was not understanding the TypeScript. So I gave a declaration file with a definition for them so that it's TypeScript happy. But other than that, that's the promise that just you include it as HTML and it will just work just like your h2 tag or div tag or any other tags. So that's how end-to-end everything is integrated together. Now I want to take some time to just justify my decisions, and it's based on use cases obviously, but I wanted to build, when it comes to look and feel, I wanted to build UI widgets that's embedded everywhere, that's independent of the app where this will be used. So it could be, in this case, a React app, but it could be Svelte, it could be Angular, it could be Django or Ruby on Rails, or so many different things we use, WordPress. It doesn't really matter because at the end of the day, HTML is HTML and we are literally defining new HTML tags. So this web component route lets me be be totally independent of the parent app. So the integration will always work. It's also in this for this demo, what I built is something very simple, so I didn't really have to incur the cost of a library. The problem with web components, if you embed too many of them, is that each of them could be a mini app with its own JS payload. If they are large, then the app has to incur the cost and it will become slower. So I was very cognizant of that, and I made that web component as a very small, one simple JS file. I didn't minimize it for this demo, but you could also minimize it, but it's very small right now. If it was something really big like the header or footer of an app, then I would probably have to go with something more, I have to use a library to put all the pieces together instead of using vanilla JavaScript. And there are some alternatives. If you go to webcomponents.dev, they actually have a comparison of the cost of different frameworks to use. For someone who is familiar with React, then the lightweight version of it, Preact, could be a very good choice. But yeah, so there's we have to. Those are the cons of it. If you are really sure that you are always going to be building React apps for the entire enterprise app, you could be better off building your UI widgets also in the same technology. In that case, integration is a lot easier, and then it could share the same state management with the parent app, and it all integrates fine together. But if you want it to be completely separate, then this is a way to go because it is within a shadow DOM. There are some exceptions to that. For example, CSS variables, they can be passed down, so you have some control, but overall you want these widgets to define how they look. That's some that's a abstraction that you can have with having the UI widget also separate from the app. And that is what is called as decoupled, because if you define the look and feel as well, then we have the term decoupled CMS. But if you're just managing the data separately, then you call it a headless CMS. It has no head. We just pull in the head like the fetch API we used to pull the data. So we had this call over here. You can this call over here, you can actually make that call straight in your app itself, right? So that would be just consuming a headless CMS. This app, I've the choice. Let's talk more about the AWS Amplify Gen 2, why I chose that one. I'm a fan of GraphQL. I've worked on Rust for many years as well, so I'm familiar with both, but I love GraphQL with the flexibility you have. Once that little, I wrote that little snippet, that GraphQL endpoint, I'm able to filter based on my requirements. I'm only filtering the active ones and for a specific collection, and I can also define the field that I want to pull. And all of that, the query, this is the query that goes to the backend, and this is what goes over the wire. So I don't have to pull everything and filter it down on the front end. Then you still incur the cost of all this data going through the wire. So that is a benefit of GraphQL. GraphQL is another thing that you have to learn if you are only using Rust. So there are other choices as well. But that's only one reason to back up. That's just a benefit of GraphQL over Rest, and there could be pros and cons, obviously. For Rest, you might have to create individual functions if you want this kind of granular control. You have to control, create parameters and write the code for it essentially. While a lot of this you get for free with the default resolvers. But yeah, I wanted to back up a little bit and talk about why did I choose AWS Gen 2 technology at all. There could be other choices similar as good, just like AWS Amplify. If you are a fan of Google, then Google Firebase. If your GCP is more familiar to you, Firebase would be an option. Supabase could be another option. There are so many options. Many years back, I created a CRUD tool where I wrote all the code in Node for all the CRUD. I wouldn't do that now because, with the amount of tooling that is available and everything being in the cloud, there is a lot of things that you'll have to worry about it. So if you just write your code first and then you think that where I'm going to deploy it, it's already too late because, how you write code. In this case, my code was just this much, right? So I had to understand a little bit about how the Gen 2 schema works, but the point is that what I'm getting with this is a lot. Every line of code that you write, you have to worry about maintaining it. You have to write tests for it. You have to make changes to it as your code evolves and new features are added as well as dependencies change. So you want to have the minimum amount of code that you want to maintain. That is one thing. More important thing is when you deploy something on the cloud, you need a lot of other things. You need to know what's happening with each of the requests. What are the errors? You need scalability. You want this to be easily scale with the users. You want some reliability, fault tolerance, so many things that comes with deploying a production-ready app for enterprises, and all of that you could get for free if you use a powerful technology like AWS or GCP. So Amplify, this is what I wrote. but behind the scenes it's powered by AWS AppSync, and a lot of AWS tools are used like CloudWatch and API Gateway and all those things, a DynamoDB behind the scenes to all make them work together. So that's why using a tool like that is far easier and far better, in my opinion. When you're building the CRUD for any app, this content management app is a very simple CRUD app. These are the benefits you get by using a tool like this. Again, the con is that you have to learn, in this case, how Amplify works, how AppSync works, things like that. But I feel like if you are trying to, it's still less effort than all the other things that I talked about with respect to building and maintaining your own app with everything custom made. So yeah, that's really it. This is all the stuff I wanted to share by just building a simple headless CMS. I am actually building this tool more and making it usable for all kinds of apps. As I build this, as I add features to this minimalistic tool, I would definitely want to share it. There will be more videos coming. So if you're interested to keep in touch, just put your email at rulescms.com and you will be updated of any of these decisions that I'm making, as well as all the videos and new tutorials that I make. Otherwise, if this was of some value to you, I would definitely appreciate some likes and subscribes on this video channel, and I'll see you on the next one.